Tourette's podcast is not a medical advice show. It's a show about experiences. In the course of that, we may talk about medications or therapies or stories from the doctor's office, but don't mistake any of that for medical advice or direction. It's not. Get that only from people or places licensed or certified to give it, not from a massively fun and action-packed podcast about our life experiences, such as...
When I was a lot younger, I kind of just realized for myself that I wanted to tell everyone. I was just very open about it. I had no shame, nothing against it. I was just proud and I just owned it. So I told people.
This is Tourette's podcast, made possible with support of the Tourette Association of America and part of the Geeks Rising Network. Hey folks, thanks for being patient. While I waited on my voice to come back, I lost it pretty much completely, which interfered with my ability to podcast, but also my vocal ticking, which was really frustrating because, if you have a tic, at least for me, it's got to be executed perfectly, the right sound, the right feeling, and I couldn't get that with laryngitis, which I've been dealing with for a while. So I'm back. This is episode 15 of season 8 of Tourette's podcast, where we talk about our life experiences with Tourette or another tic disorder. Got a couple listener questions to answer here. Maya asks, do your tics get worse when the temperature is cold? And yeah, I think they do. I get cold pretty easily, and I definitely tense up my body and shiver a lot. And I think in the mix of that, that's when some of my breathing tics really start acting up, where I breathe irregularly and expel all the air from my lungs and I kind of hold it out. That one seems to happen when I'm cold or when I'm exercising, but I do get cold easily. I don't know what that is, but Maya, thanks for your question. Got another question here. I'm condensing these questions, by the way. These are parts of longer emails that have come in, but here's a good one from Matthew, who asks, what forms of art have been the most helpful to you in working with your Tourette's? And do you think your Tourette's shows through in the art you make? And that's a really cool question because, as we so often talk about, creativity and artistic expression are all over the Tourette and tic disorder community. We've talked with painters, collage artists, graphic artists, dancers, musicians, writers, all kinds of creative people who really use those traits to get a therapeutic experience or have, something to kind of zone out with or focus closely on in a way that works with their brains and agrees with their Tourette. And Tourette does come through in some of this work. We recently had on the podcast musician Stephen DeJoseph, whose work straight up tells his story of living with Tourette and co-occurring conditions. Our guest today on the podcast is a professional model, which is also a form of expression, of course. For me, with my artwork chiefly being photography, the way I like to shoot my images is directly influenced by Tourette as well as anxiety and depression. I do events photography professionally, and that's nothing but working with crowds of people, really. But when it comes to the art or fun photography I do, I shoot a lot of images that depict developed landscapes that are most often devoid of people, a downtown scene that doesn't have any people in it. Yeah, having the kind of brain conditions I have, including Tourette, has influenced what I want to see in any art. How about you? If you're an artist with Tourette or a tic disorder or any of the comorbidities we talk about, depression, anxiety, all that, send me an email, tourettespodcast@gmail.com, and let me know if and whether your diagnoses figure into your art in any way. It's an extremely expressive community. This is also a good topic for the Tourette's Podcast discussion group on Facebook run by Sophia in the UK. It's a really active place where people are asking questions, having conversations, all kind of through the lens or about Tourette syndrome. Got one more question here from Sarah. This one's great and fortunately easy to answer. Where can I get one of those Tourette ID cards that say I have Tourette syndrome? And so I assume that these are the ID cards or the cards that come from the Tourette Association of America online at tourette.org. And on that website, you can actually find and download the PDF file of that card and print it yourself or get it printed on sturdier paper somewhere. I'm going to put a link to where you can find it in the show notes with this episode at tourettespodcast.com. Again, this is the Tourette explainer card that you can, kind of a wallet card that you can show people in situations where you may need to, have an explanation ready about your Tourette syndrome, as unfortunate as that may be. But I'll put a link in the show notes with this episode at tourettespodcast.com. And Sophia, again, our discussion group admin on Facebook, she always posts the links that are relevant to each episode there. But this is the card you can get for your wallet when you need it that explains what Tourette syndrome is. And to read you exactly what it says this, quote, "Why do I act this way? Because I can't control it. I have Tourette syndrome or a tic disorder, a medical condition. It causes me to make loud sounds, have twitches, and say things I don't mean. Please understand that this is a medical condition and I cannot control my tics. Treatment for Tourette and tics is limited and there is no cure. I am grateful for your understanding and empathy." End quote. So that's what the card says. If you need to present it to anybody, I've heard plenty of stories of people having to show it at airports to show that they're, just to give the context of why they are acting the way they're acting, so to speak. So that's what the card says. There's also language that says Tourette is indeed covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's on the card as well. Of course, that's for our US audience. But there's also a COVID-related version of this card that explains roughly the same thing. But points out that coughs and sniffles and things like that can be tics. I'll post a link to all this. It's available in Spanish as well. These explainer cards that you can sign or write your name on. There's a place for that on there too, where you can write your name. I hope that helps. It's a nice card to have. Hope you never have to use it. But thank you, Sarah, for that question. Let's get to our guest today, Shelby, whose presence here on the podcast today reminds us that Tourette isn't the only tic disorder out there. Some people just have motor tics, for example. It's the life experience that matters to me, and people who experience involuntary tics, whether it's Tourette or something else, all have stories to share about how that's impacted their lives. Luckily for Shelby, she's actually found a pharmaceutical solution that's worked really well for her. Again, this is not a medical advice show. This is just part of her story. So she's been able to find success in what she loves doing, including professional modeling, an art form and discipline all its own. And of course, because these diagnoses can be such a huge presence in our lives, and because there's something to say between modeling and what people think of the model within the industry, I do start out by asking her whether there have been any challenges on that front. This is a great talk with someone who wants to have a future in advocating for the best of the Tourette and tic disorder communities. So let's get to it.
Hi guys, my name is Shelby Ally. I'm 21 years old from Orange County, California. And right now I am a full-time college student and I also part-time model and act.
So modeling and acting, is that something that you want to pursue? So you're full-time college, but is modeling something you want to pursue on more of a professional level? Or are you doing it at a professional level simultaneously with college? Or, is it more of an expression type thing?
Yes, I've been doing it for about 2 years now, and I'm signed to an agency. So I love it. I do a lot of it. So it's not just for fun. I do make money from it.
Forgive me if this sounds like an ignorant question. It might be, but just curious. Since modeling, to me from the outside. So I'm a photographer and I don't photograph models, but through the course of work, I do know a lot of models, and there's the overlap, pretty heavily when it comes to perception and image. Have tics and just to let the audience know, you haven't been diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, but you do have a tic disorder. You do experience tics. You do have that life experience. Has that been something you've had to answer for in any way in the course of doing your modeling work?
Honestly, no, not really. I've had tics since I was 10 years old. So I was placed on heavy medications when I was 10. I take Haldol, Topamax, Clonidine. And so my tics actually aren't really that bad anymore. So people don't even realize them. So
you found a combination medication-wise. Are those medications that you're still on?
Yes, I've been taking them for over 10 years. And honestly, at this point, I feel like the meds are more prevalent than the tics themselves.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's, and again, we have to say as we do that, this is not a medical advice show. This, just because something works for Shelby doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And, this is just, talking about her experience, but it's interesting, because a lot of people talk about their, displeasure with medications, or they've had to kind of hop from medication to medication over time to see what works. But you've found a pretty fortunate situation of finding something that's, been pretty, I guess, reliable to you.
Yeah, it has been reliable in regards to helping my tics. However, it has come with a lot of side effects, and
Yeah.
there has been some times where I have gone off the medication just for various reasons, and the withdrawals have been just so bad. I don't
Hmm.
It's been hard to relate to people, and I don't think they've really understood what I've actually gone through.
So typically, you hear about lack of energy or feeling like a zombie, or has that been your experience?
Yeah, I've become so tired some days where I feel like I'm going to pass out. And then other days where, for example, where I wouldn't take the Haldol, I would get very delirious, or sometimes I would just feel like people were against me.
Huh.
So yeah, it was just some of the withdrawals were hard to tell people about, or not tell people about, but hard to relate to people.
What happened with your tics during those withdrawal periods?
They would get a little worse, but honestly, they wouldn't get that bad. I honestly just want to get off the medication because I think it's making it all more amped up than it has to be.
Hmm. I got you. I understand what you're saying. So like there's more. Do you mean that there's a sense of importance placed on the medicine that kind of outweighs maybe just appreciating your life with tics, or but would you go that route, or?
I think I would. I am at this point trying to taper off of them,
Yeah.
but they do help me. So I don't think there's anything wrong with them at this point. When I am on them, everything's fine.
Right. Right. Well, how do you have some people have there are different types of tic disorders. There's Tourette syndrome, which
Mhm.
is the concurrence of vocal and or co-occurrence of vocal and motor tics, and then you have people who just have maybe like bodily movement type tics, like
Mhm.
muscle jerks. Then there are people who have purely vocal tics. There's some people who say that motor and vocal tics are just kind of the same thing anyway, but um,
Yeah.
what kind of tics do you experience, or have you experienced?
I have the not the verbal tics. So when I was 10 years old, I would have the neck movements where my neck would be jerking back and forth very simultaneously, and it would just be very obvious,
Hmm.
and my mom would say it was like mini seizures. So at that point I just needed to get help for it. And when I first was diagnosed with tics, I had the usual ones where my eyes were blinking and everything. So my family just really wanted me to see what was going on.
Gotcha. So, I mean, is there anything that you sort of learned about yourself through experiencing something like tics, something that can be kind of socially awkward when it's not completely under control? First off, is that
Mhm.
something you're ever even worried about? The level of control you
Um,
have over your tics when you're like in a social situation or professional situation.
I think for now, I'm really able to manage my tics at this point. But when I was in middle school or elementary school, because I got them in 5th grade, for example,
Yeah.
um, it was really hard to manage them, and when people would ask me about them when I did soccer or just other sports, I think I would get sad, and I didn't understand why they were asking me these questions. I didn't know how to respond
Yeah.
because sometimes you just don't wanna tell them, but then what do you say?
Exactly, exactly. We've said it on the podcast a lot that it's your business. You don't have to tell people, but it's like the
Mhm.
very nature of this kind of makes you. It kind of puts you in this awkward position where you either want to explain yourself, or in some situations feel coerced to explain yourself, and
Yeah.
that's really awkward. I mean, Was there a way of that you had of explaining it to kids your age who just didn't get it?
When I was a lot younger, I kind of just realized for myself that I wanted to tell everyone. I was just very open about it. I had no shame, nothing against it. I was just proud and I just owned it. So I told people.
Nice.
Mhm.
Nice. What was there a way that you had of relating it to help them understand? That there's the classics of, it's like holding your eyes open and trying not to blink. Some people would say it's like a
Oh,
hiccup,
yeah.
or did you have a way of kind of relating it?
I would just say, I think this is what my mom told me when I was very little. I would just say it's unwanted movements in the body, and that's basically I just said I had that, and I just went with that.
Right.
So, mhm.
So was medication something that you wanted to go on to? I mean, was there a goal with that to really just generally just kind of get these things under
Mhm.
control?
Honestly, I was 10 years old, so
Hmm.
there was a lot of different ways that I'm very thankful that my parents, tried to help me get this situation under control.
Hmm.
So they thought about Botox, they thought about meds, they thought I actually went to acupuncture, but that didn't really do much. So thankfully the meds kind of eased it down, and
Yeah.
yeah, just big shout out, thank you to my parents for helping me to go along this journey and not leaving me in the dust.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's everything. That's the difference between, I mean, because I do hear from people who don't have supportive parents, and
Mhm.
in some situations, they won't invite them out. It just
Wow.
a complete lack of acceptance. And so, there's a level of acceptance, and then there's action that comes with it. And it's really, really cool to see parents who kind of stick with you, and they're ready to try all kinds of different things just to kind of see what may
Mhm.
improve your life situation. So yeah, shout out to them. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's not easy dealing with it, and so, yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
So is this something that you talk about frequently? Do your friends sort of know this history with you? Any professional colleagues? I mean, is this something that you talk about much at all?
I think I've started to become a lot more open about it because my medications have been affecting me. But honestly, throughout my entire past, I always have been very open about it.
And do you find people are mostly accepting, or I mean, have there been challenges with people understanding that?
They've always been pretty accepting. I've never really had people judge or anything, which is very nice, and I'm glad. So,
That's so cool. That's so cool. Especially, with you working. I mean, I'm glad you have the ticks and everything
mhm,
under control, as you like, and that it doesn't interfere with your work or anything like that. Some people say anxiety will kind of bring forth because and also
yeah,
as we say Tourette is more than just ticks. They're or tick disorders are more than just ticks. There are plenty of
mhm,
other things that can go along with it. Sleep issues, things like that. But anxiety would be a big one for me. Have you experienced that like in a professional setting?
mhm,
And if so, does that do anything to kind of summon forth anything that feels like a tick or,
yeah.
a
Oh,
yeah.
totally. Oh my gosh. Actually, around 2 years ago, I was getting such bad anxiety, I ended up in the emergency room. So,
Oh my
I was
gosh.
actually placed I know, it was so scary. I was placed on anxiety and, depression meds, so that is definitely something that comes along, I believe, with my tics disorder. And yeah, so it's definitely a struggle.
So is that something you still that you still have to deal with from time to time? I mean,
Mhm.
professional situations make me nervous. I mean, anything like that happen with you, or?
For now, I think my anxiety has calmed down a little bit, but for sure I do get depressed here and there, which is not always easy, and my mood can just kind of can go up and down, which I think is normal with tics.
Mm,
And also I get such bad insomnia.
yeah.
I could stay up all night. I actually kind of enjoy pulling all-nighters. So yeah, just staying up is kind of hard for me.
Yeah, I totally relate to that. I mean, it's I might have said this a few years ago in the podcast in one episode where I talked about like how, sleep is my enemy. I almost enjoy staying up and doing things, and that's when I get really creative and think of new things I want to do. Or, it's just I'm never ready to shut the brain off.
Me too, totally.
Things have changed lately. I get a lot of sleep, but in general, I mean, that attitude still kind of prevails, even though I know how, important sleep is to so many, pieces of your future. And,
Yeah.
but I mean, what do you find yourself doing when you can't turn the brain off?
I find myself doing absolutely everything. I'll go clean my room, or I'll go do a dance workout. There's so many ideas in my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, what else do you do that you find, because even though that's you kind of, passing the time and doing something you want to do, are these also things that you find therapeutic and things that do kind of, I know with modeling, you clarified earlier, this is, you are a professional, you're not just doing this for fun, but there's got to be some, expressive level to this too, that must have some therapeutic effect on these things you deal with.
Oh yeah. In a way to keep myself just kind of happy and sane, I'm Christian, so I like to pray and read my Bible and just worship God. So that's what I do to just kind of keep myself happy and stuff like that.
Is that stuff that inspires what you do professionally, or you mentioned dance and stuff like that? I mean, a lot of people draw inspiration from different places.
Oh, yeah, I think just in general, I've been going to church my whole life, and then just on the side, I love dancing. I do African dance workouts on YouTube, which I think are so fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I should know this from experience, and I'm ashamed I'm not, but like I know a lot of people who relate steady exercise with or workout routines with kind of a break from the need to tick, or the feeling that you're about to tick. Or in my case, I don't know, like when I go brisk walking, I have these breathing tics that kind of act up a little bit. Do you find that the physical fitness aspect of it and the dance and all that, I mean, is that something that kind of helps you get to a place where you have a break from these things?
Yes, it totally helps me. I also I love going on hikes. So when I go on hikes, or I actually used to do cross country, track, and lacrosse. So I've always been very athletic, and I've always been working out basically my whole life. So I think that's always kind of helped me and helped my brain stay energized, and it's really good for you, I think, to work out. It really helps.
The Tourette Association of America is the premier nonprofit working to raise awareness, advance research, and provide ongoing support for those with Tourette syndrome or a tic disorder. With a network of over 130 chapters, support groups, and centers of excellence, the TAA engages with communities across the nation in an effort to provide tools, webinars, workshops, and support for all seeking assistance. As a primary sponsor of Tourette's podcast, the TAA supports authentic conversations showcasing the diverse representation of the Tourette community. To learn more, go to tourette.org. That's TOURETTE.org. The Tourette Association of America. Uncontrollable, unstoppable. So after college, or when you wrap up with that, what do you see yourself doing? What's ahead for you?
So I love social media. I love, as I mentioned, I love acting, modeling, and just I love LA. Like currently I live in Orange County right now, but I'm just trusting God, and I want to possibly move out there and just keep pursuing my dreams.
I forgot what season it was. I reference this a lot, but Louis Rossignol, who's an artist who has Tourette syndrome, he's a fantastic artist who has Tourette syndrome, and
Oh, wow.
and he mentioned the importance of if you have a talent, kind of especially in a community like this where there seems to be a lot of people who excel at creativity, and there may be science to that, but there seems to be kind of this favored on ramp when in the Tourette syndrome and tic disorder community, and beyond. But following your dreams and having something that you do have your eye on, at least enough to where you can carry forward with you as a passion with professional potential, as you're doing maybe what might be a safe thing to do, say in college or something. Just kind of keeping your dreams kind of close to you, because sometimes they do really kind of pan out. I mean, they did in my case when it comes to photography. They did in his case when it comes to art. I mean, he's done some high profile stuff. I mean, it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing at a professional level already. So you're doing a lot of acting as well. Is that like stage, or is that more behind the camera, or?
Yeah, so I just started acting about a year ago. It's nothing too crazy, but I do extra stuff. I have done a few leads before, and yeah, it's behind the camera. I also am totally open to working on sets and just anything like that. I really just enjoy being on set. It's something I really love.
It's fun. So where I grew up in Wilmington, they call it Hollywood East. A lot of movies made there. There are a bunch of TV shows that were made there, like Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill, and
Nice.
a lot of stuff in like the early 2000s. And trying to think of what else. Under the Dome, Sleepy Hollow, just a bunch of stuff was made there, and in addition to movies. But my old roommate and I, Raph, we signed up as extras to be in stuff like that, like
That's so fun.
Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill, and plus the downtown Wilmington, they would close off the street to film scenes for movies and things like that. I mean, there was a Screen Gem studio there, but we had a lot of opportunity to kind of, I guess, interact with that scene. It was always a lot of fun. It was exciting. People are always nice, and
Yeah,
the set folks are nice, like really, really cool.
they really are. I think it really depends on the set. I was on a movie set once, and the people right when I got there said that my outfit did not match the time of the set. So, yeah, I don't know.
Oh, so this was like a period piece, and you were like a decade off or something, or?
Yeah, I was.
Well, in terms of advocacy for tic disorders, and I mean, is that something that you also kind of bring with you, or is that something you're doing more of? Because you mentioned, kind of disclosing that when it comes to explaining the context of your medication and what it does to you. Sometimes like this comes with advocacy as well. Is that something you find yourself doing more of, or want to do more of?
Yes, totally. I actually really want to work more with the Tourette Association to raise money. And I also just want to share on this podcast that, and like I was saying, that I am currently chasing my dreams and that I have tics, that anyone who has a dream and anyone that is dealing with anything that may be affecting them or that may seem like an obstacle, if they do work hard and that if they do believe in themselves, that they can make their dreams come true, and that everyone was born beautifully and with a unique purpose, and that we were all meant to shine. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you for saying that, because that also demonstrates, another really, I think, important piece of this community, and that's the level of empathy that it has and understanding for, what other people go through, what their challenges are, and all of that, but also the opportunity to do something you can be proud of and feel good about.
Of course, it's really not easy sometimes when you're dealing with things that seem really hard, or when sometimes you're like, for me, some days I feel so tired and I just want to lay in bed, or I just don't want to go out, but I just tell myself I'm going to push through. I'm going to go fight for my dreams, and everything's going to be okay. And I think that can really help people because everyone, if they work hard and if they fight, just fight past the hard things and the obstacles, that they can make their dreams happen too.
That's something that I've had to like write on Post-it notes and put around the house, is to not forget about potential. And
Mhm.
so I deal with major depressive disorder and some other things that kind of
Mhm.
intermingle with that, and the outcome can be you lay in bed all day, with the covers over
Yeah.
your face, and it almost feels right to do that, but
Mhm.
I mean you can really let it carry you away, or carry me away. I've certainly let it do that,
Yeah.
but just having that little reminder, maybe I should get it tattooed or something. just, just remember the potential that you have for the day. And,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be something massive, but, just remember what's possible, what's there, and what you can do. And, whether it's just cleaning up, or, doing a piece of an assignment that you've been putting off, or, I mean, you can fill in the blank. I mean, this is not,
If people don't want to do as much, they don't have to do everything.
of
They don't have
course.
to go above and beyond. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, God, depression is that's one that is a side cart, or the main motorcycle to Tourette syndrome for a lot of
Mhm.
people I speak with, and we both know the benefits of getting the rest that we need,
Yes.
and just kind of nurturing ourselves, even in the face of maybe even people misunderstanding the extent we go to sometimes to nurture ourselves.
Mhm.
I really can't judge anybody for how they try to take care of themselves if they're going in a positive direction, and or at least trying to. So I mean, insomnia, is there anything that you do to actually, kind of treat that? I know you you said you kind of bounce off the walls on those particular nights, but have you found anything helpful, just kind of in the interest of getting the rest you need?
Mhm. I have a few different ways that I try to help with it. So I do night workouts. I listen to ASMR. I listen to music. So I do night workouts. I listen to ASMR. I listen to music, and usually those things kind of help me to get in the mood to sleep a little bit more. But still, it's usually kind of hard.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, what advice would you have for any, when you said tics were kind of coming on for you, what did you say it was, like fifth grade?
Yes, 5th grade.
I mean, that's a sensitive age, and is also when a lot of other people started exhibiting maybe some of their first tics. I think I was like 5 or 6, but
Oh,
you hear about it, and uh, all the way up to 12, 13. You hear about adults who tick for the first time, but I mean, what advice would you have for, because you did a good job self accepting and
mhm,
explaining things to people. What advice would you have for younger people who were in the awkward, maybe
mhm.
perceivably awkward position of having tics in a world where their classmates might not understand it, and they might not be to the point
Yeah.
of self accepting either. Like, what advice would you have for somebody like that?
I would say just to be proud of who you are and don't be ashamed because there's nothing wrong with having tics. Tics are beautiful, and we,
Hmm.
as I mentioned, we are all unique, and we all are made differently, and all we are all made amazingly. So I think there's nothing you should be worried about. If you want to tell someone, then you can tell them, but you're not obligated to tell them if you have tics. There's nothing that is telling us that we have to tell people. So I just basically I think that people should be proud and not ashamed.
So where can people find you if they want to contact you, if they have any questions for you on, are you on social media, or where can people get up with you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media. My Instagram is at shelby.ally.
And how is that spelled?
SHELBY.ALLY.
Shelby.Ally, and that's on Instagram.
Yes.
Well, Shelby, thank you so much. This has been so much fun talking and hearing about your story and the advice that you have, because I think it's valuable to hear from people like you. So really appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate you having me. I had a great time.
Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to Shelby for coming on to talk with us about her life and management of tics and inspiration, advice. That was a lot of fun. We do have one more episode of the season coming to you very shortly. A great guest. Thank you so much for being with us throughout this really dynamic and fun season of Tourette's podcast with so many different voices, different lives. Thanks for hanging out. Tourette's podcast is made possible by the Tourette Association of America online at tourette.org, where you can find all sorts of resources about Tourette and tic disorders and events coming up. And of course, they just had Tourette and Tic Disorder Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. in the United States, where scores of Tourette advocates spoke with their members of Congress or their staffs about the reality that Tourette comes with, some policy needs. And it's great that we can have a centralized day in the United States to get everybody together and lobby like that toward the what's better for the community. I want to congratulate everybody at the TAA who made that successful. Tourette's podcast is also part of the Geeks Rising network of podcasts at geeksrising.com, bringing this podcast to a bigger and more general listening audience, which is awesome. We're not an echo chamber. I'm going to get going, but we will be right back with the season finale. Please don't miss it. Thank you again for listening. This is Ben.